Well, hello again. Sorry this video seems to be taking place at night, but it's just the very poor light at the moment on the boat. Hopefully the sun will come out in a minute and it should get a bit better. Anyway, I thought I'd wear my amusing winter hat for this video for some reason or other, which I find kind of entertaining. It's sort of Scandinavian type hat. It reminds me of a character in the Moomin Troll books, which you may or may not know, called the Hemulin, who wears a very similar hat. He's one of my favourite characters. Today I just wanted to talk about one of my favourite moments. It's another one of my favourite moments in British film videos, a short video. And I want to talk about a film featuring Leslie Howard, the great Leslie Howard. Now, of course, Leslie Howard was one of the most famous British film actors of the 30s and 40s. He didn't last very long into the 40s because he was in fact killed during the Second World War in 1943. But in his day he was certainly one of the biggest stars of British cinema. And he starred in a number of films. The early 1930s he was in the Scarlet Pimpernel, which made him quite famous. And then later on he was in 3 war films, in the wonderful 49th Parallel by Powell and Pressburger, which is a great favourite of mine. He plays this very nonchalant English guy in the middle of nowhere that the Nazi agents think is a pushover, but in fact he turns out not to be. And then he was in the first of the Feud, very famous film about the designer of the Spitfire, the fighter that pretty much won the Battle of Britain. He was wonderful in that as Mitchell, the inventor of the Spitfire. And then he was in a 3rd war film, and that's the one I want to mention today. I want to show you a little bit from that, which is a favourite moment of mine, and that's called Pimpernel Smith. It's a rerun of the Scarlet Pimpernel idea, but set during the Second World War. And Leslie Howard plays a professor, a kind of slightly absent-minded, sort of unworldly Cambridge professor, who of course turns out to be a secret agent. And he and some of his students go on a trip into Germany. I think this is just before the beginning of the war, just about when war is about to break out. And he's actually engaged on a secret mission, but of course he doesn't tell his students. It becomes quite complicated. They get involved in the end, and he manages to perform the mission, rescue some people, get the students out, and then he manages well, I shouldn't really give the plot away, but he manages, by being very clever, to elude the Nazi pursuers. Now, what I love about Leslie Howard, he's my great, he's one of my favourite actors because he's the ideal of the British gentleman of that period, the 30s and 40s. He's very kind of quiet-spoken, very polite, and very laid back, and he is not at all ostentatious. He treats everything as a bit of a joke. He's a little bit absent-minded, but of course at the same time he gets up to all these heroic deeds. And this kind of attitude, this was a kind of British self-image at that time, and it might seem a bit corny now, but in those days people really did believe in it, and I think a lot of people believed in it to the extent that they actually were able to behave like that, including during the war, including in very dangerous periods. Think of the fighter pilots going up day after day in the Battle of Britain, and treating it all as a game. Secret agents. People really believed in that kind of self-image of Britain and the British personality. And Leslie Howard, in many ways, was the epitome of that. And by the way, of course, the one film I completely forgot to mention at the beginning, which he's most famous of all for, is Gone with the Wind. He plays Ashley in Gone with the Wind. And I always thought it was a bit strange that, being a British actor, he played an American in a classic American film. But he kind of works as a Southern aristocrat. That's the idea, that the Southern aristocrats kind of thought of themselves as rather taking on that kind of old British aristocratic, kind of rather civilised, languid kind of manner. And he does it rather well. So, of course, Gone with the Wind is his most famous film. Anyway, so this typical British hero, very understated, quiet-spoken. What's very interesting on 2 levels is that, interestingly enough, he was born with I think it was a Jewish father or Jewish mother. I can't remember which one it was. I think it was yes. No, in fact, yes. His mother was British and his father was Hungarian, and they were Jewish as well. So they were originally called Steiner, and they anglicised themselves as Stainer, and then later Howard presumably took on the name Leslie Howard as a name as a film star. And I was just looking to see if the sun's going to come out, but I don't think it is. Never mind, we'll carry on in the gloom. This is the fascinating thing, that it's happened before. An émigré, somebody born from an émigré family, growing up in a culture, a Jewish culture in Britain, which was in those days quite peripheral, became this symbol of Britishness, British gallantry and heroism, which is rather wonderful, I think, particularly, of course, in working against the Nazis. And that's the other thing, that it seems he really was involved in intelligence, and he was quite possibly a secret agent in real life as well as being a film star. There is a theory that he was killed when his plane was shot down in 1943, and it's thought there is a theory that it was shot down by the Nazis because he was actually a dangerous secret agent. So it's one of these cases where fiction becomes reality. The part that he played on the screen was apparently actually really the part he played in the war. Anyway, so Pimpernel Smith, basically it's a rehash of the old Scarlet Pimpernel story from the French Revolution. And the scene I want to show you, this is one of my favourite moments. This absolutely captures Leslie Howard's whole style. The pompous Nazis strutting around, they want to get him, they're obviously going to execute him. He stays very cool and calm, and then just when you think all is lost, he manages to vanish away. Here we are. This is my favourite little bit from Leslie Howard in Pimpernel Smith, 1941.
When do we get there?
About 25 minutes.
And then?
Then, England.
England? You've never been to England?
Well, there are varying opinions about it. There was an Englishman named Rupert Brooke, who was also in Germany, when he said, "God, I will pack and take a train and get me to England once again. For England's the one land I know where men with splendid hearts may go." And women with splendid hearts, too.
Good morning, Professor Smith.
Good morning.
Will you come with me?
What for?
I have orders to detain you.
I'm coming too.
No, madam, your train is waiting. Take this lady through the barrier.
I won't go without you.
I should be all right. Go straight to Montalier, Hotel Excelsior. Your father's waiting for you.
But you, can you manage?
I shall do my best. Hurry now, the train's waiting. Au revoir.
Au revoir.
This way, please. In here, please, Professor.
Well, Professor of Archaeology?
Well, Captain of Murderers?
You won't mind spending a few minutes with me until our special train arrives?
I take it I have no choice.
Very little.
This must be a big moment for you.
A minor satisfaction. I wanted to get you out of my system before I turn my mind to more important matters. You had become a great nuisance to me, Professor. Almost an obsession. But everything comes to an end.
What particular end had you planned for me?
Need we go into details? At least it will be quick.
But violent, I suppose. A strange end for one who despises violence. At the hands of those who worship it. The new German god.
Of course we worship it. Violence means power, and power crushes opposition. The epoch of the council chamber is over, Herr Professor. I tell you that power and strength and violence will rule the world.
Why are you sweating, my dear General? It isn't very warm. Are you afraid of something?
Afraid? We Germans fear nothing.
Ah, because you have a pistol.
Yes, I have a pistol. It has 8 bullets. 8 lives.
And I have 28 lives.
Huh?
Scientists, men of letters, artists, doctors. 28. Saved from your pagan pistol. And all you've got is my humble self. Not a very profitable transaction.
We can afford to make a loss. Our profits will be tremendous. Tonight we march against Poland. And tomorrow we'll see the dawn of a new order. We shall make a German empire of the world. Why do I talk to you? You are a dead man.
May a dead man say a few words to you, General, for your enlightenment? You will never rule the world because you are doomed. All of you who have demoralized and corrupted a nation are doomed. Tonight you will take the first step along a dark road from which there is no turning back. You will have to go on and on, from one madness to another, leaving behind you a wilderness of misery and hatred. And still you will have to go on, because you will find no horizon and see no dawn until at last you are lost and destroyed. You are doomed, Captain of Murderers. And one day, sooner or later, you will remember my words.
Stop! Come back! You were never nearer death than at that moment.
How could one die better than waving goodbye to a friend?
All right, take charge of him. Take him out of that lab where I can see him.
Herr Reich Minister, be careful. He's only to step past the barrier, across the frontier.
That's exactly what I want him to do.
Ah, shot while trying to escape.
And by me. By me. All right, get out. I will protect you myself, Professor.
Would you care for an English cigarette, General? It might steady your nerves.
My nerves are perfectly steady.
They don't appear to be. Just an old-fashioned match. There's rather a valuable relic at your feet, General. May I pick it up to preserve it for the future?
No. I will.
How careless of them to have overlooked it. It's charming, isn't it? It proves, among other things, the complete non-existence of an early Aryan civilization in this country.
Silence! Get back! Who called you? Come back!
Don't worry. I shall be back. We shall all be back.